My name is Talley Caruso. I just came from California just a few hours ago, and I am here to share with you Digital ESL, which is basically a free resource that I created that teaches digital literacy to beginner ESL learners. I first came to the Digital Symposium last year in its inaugural year, and I came out here for literally a half a day conference. So I knew that these were my people, right? Like to get on a plane and just be here for a few hours. It feels really niche sometimes, but it actually really isn't. I think there's so many people that could benefit from the ability to navigate and kind of those basic skills that to find other people that also see that as a need, is really, really promising. So I'm glad to have you all here. And what I hope to do by the end of this session is that everybody, both online and in person, will be able to leave with their very own digital copy of Digital ESL. So it's very easy to customize. It's based off of Google Slides. You can use it in PowerPoint. The idea is that it's a paper first way of teaching digital literacy, because you don't need to add technology to technology to technology to teach it. You need to kind of break it down to the basics and allow people to play around. All right, so I like to start off with a little thank you. So this was a photo collage that I created from the last visit to Houston with some people that you might recognize if you are familiar with the Mayor's Office of Adult Literacy, and also a bunch of people that I'd like to thank. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but some of the people that I've been super fortunate to meet include Dr. Glenda Rose, who has done digital access and resilience training, I think it's called, but basically it's a very rigorous computer-based literacy for beginner ESL. Incredible resource. She introduced me to someone actually in California, Jamie Edelson Goldstein, who is one of the authors or the main author for the Oxford Picture Dictionary for American English. And so after I had published this the first time around, and I came out here, I got connected to Jamie through Glenda, and she's like, oh my God, I would love to volunteer my time and help you with this. So what you'll be seeing is actually an improved version because, obviously the pictures are really what helps people understand what's going on. So I have some professional support in that area because the ESL community is really incredible, and through MOAL, just getting everybody connected has been great. And I'm trying to think who else. Obviously, Mayor's Office for Adult Literacy, they've connected me with so many people, and being here to be able to share this with all of you, and hopefully you can share it with others as well, is something that is near and dear to my heart, because this was completely done in my spare time with my resources, not paid, no grants or anything. And then last but not least, I'm representing my school. So I teach at Chabot Community College in California. They actually sponsored for me to be out here. So thank you, Chabot, for that. And then all of you here attending today's training, because the more people that know about this resource, hopefully the more that feel comfortable, utilizing it and maybe telling other people about it too. All right, so today's agenda, we're a little bit off, but I think we can catch up the time, no problem. We'll start off with a welcome and warm up. Then we'll go on to a little bit of background about digital ESL, and I'll show you some excerpts from the actual material. And then you'll have time to personalize your very own copy. The reason why I highlighted that, it's the most important part. And then we'll have some time for questions and additional resources. If anyone's really quick with math, you'll notice that this morning's session is longer than this afternoon's session. This morning's session is being recorded. It is a hybrid session. We had a little bit of a late start, but like I said, I think we can catch up, no problem. All right, I have this here. Feel free to type your name, location, and role in the chat window if you'd like to, but I think we'll probably leave most of that to the end just for time. All right, so for those of you that want a little refresher on digital literacy, digital literacy is the ability to use technology to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information. This definition from the American Library Association, believe it or not, is from 2011, which, when you think about digital literacy, seems really early, right? But they were on the forefront knowing that this was a type of literacy that was super important for all of us. And what I wanted to highlight here is a lot of times you see digital literacy and you think about information literacy or media literacy where people go super advanced, like, oh, how are you supposed to know if X, Y, Z? Some people can't operate their phones to know if they're on Wi-Fi or cell plan, right? Like, so even just that first step of finding buttons, finding features, finding how to get onto the internet, that is what we're focused on here. So what Digital ESL does, which is the material that I created, it provides educators, both specialized and non-specialized, free and ready to use teaching materials to foster digital literacy in their communities. And the reason why I created this is because when there isn't a potential for revenue on the other side, a lot of times you probably know there's not a lot of funding. So when I had originally created this was for age 65 plus. Those typically aren't the age that you think of when you think about workforce. So you don't have a lot of funding to go, we need to improve the workforce, because the workforce typically isn't 65 plus. So it's a really underserved population, doubly marginalized because over 65 and not so proficient in English. So whether they be like, part of adult basic education population or ESL, that overlap really becomes marginalized in a way that becomes exclusionary, like extremely exclusionary. So my personal background, my parents live in New Jersey. As I mentioned, I live in California. So I'm a remote caretaker. My dad has dementia. My mom has anxiety. Both of them are a little bit up in age, 79 and 83. I am an active CATESL leader. CATESL is the organization for ESL teachers in California. I also volunteer at the Hayward Public Library, which is where I actually was able to develop and find a cohort to teach this with. I'm currently an instructor of ESL at Chabot Community College and also Ohlone Community College. And really the two main things here are I'm a huge advocate for digital inclusion. And through that, I spend as much time as possible to share with others digital ESL and also look to see if I could build a network of other people that would like to enhance it or, make changes and things like that. The last one's probably the oddest bullet point of any of them, but I just recently switched over to teaching English. I have 20 years of experience. Just recently was a senior director of operations at an apparel company. I have worked at Gap, Johnson & Johnson, Vans, just all the really big companies. But when it came down to it, I realized that teaching was really where my heart is. So I switched. And I don't regret 1 minute of it. So it's very, very rewarding. All right, so as if we're not warmed up enough, what are these? Keyboards on a computer, on a phone. Okay, any languages that you can kind of pick out here? And folks on the phone, if you want to unmute, you can also join in. Yeah, what's with that? They're not all QWERTY keyboards. So we've got like a QWERTY here. This one looks kind of familiar, right? This one might be US English. Then there's a QWERTY one up here, but then what does the space bar say? Dao Kutch. We got some accent symbols up here. This is Azerty. I didn't know Azerty existed, but it does. I believe French uses it. Then we've got, I believe it's Arabic. Then we've got Chinese, but it's the type where you can, this is the only type that I would be able to use. You like use your finger and you kind of like sketch it out. I guess it's like their finger swiping, but just I don't know how many people use it, but that's part of my Chinese name, so that's how I know how to write it. It's and then here's another version of a Chinese keyboard where there's just random strokes around, and I don't know how you would navigate it. So imagine you're in one of these countries and you just kind of land there and everything, your keyboard, you get a new phone and the default's not English. And for some reason, you're left with this keyboard, you're like, okay, now what? Right? So keyboards, despite feeling really basic, not so basic. So this is the different types. Now, one thing I do want you to notice, if you had to take a guess, let's say you're on any one of these, how do you create a space on the keyboard? Big, long button on the bottom, right? So digital literacy, I think a lot of times, people think of as like, oh, well, if you don't have language literacy, you can't have digital literacy. Not true. I think many of us probably don't have language literacy in a lot of these languages, but we can find the space button. So there are some things that are applicable where you can pull from the learner's previous knowledge to be able to help them forward. They're not completely lost, but how far will a space bar get you? Probably not far enough, right? Okay, so let's go back to English, something that we think that we feel really good about. Anyone want to take a guess on what combination of keys is necessary using the little label buttons that I just showed you? If I was trying to tell someone to just type the percent sign here. C, okay, and then? No, see, yeah. You got to try it, and you could try it on for those that are dialed in too. This is not a trick. C and then A, yep. And then, yeah, see, so that's exactly it. So, what's really incredible is we feel really confident with this. We're like, oh, if I needed to punch this in as a password, I could figure it out. But could you instruct somebody? Oh, is someone on the phone? Do you want to kind of chime in? No. Okay. So yeah, you click on C, then click on A, the arrow, the arrow up turns into a hashtag plus equal sign, and then the percent sign shows up in the top row. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is because we're very confident using this, but that's because we know that we could probably figure it out once we play around with it, once we look at it. And so we know that we could find it later if we needed to. And so that's exactly what Digital ESL does as well, is that through experiential learning, through having done it before, you build the confidence to be like, I don't need to memorize it all, but I could probably find it because I remember like these buttons do something, right? So just the same level of knowledge that we have, we want to at least impart that on our students.
Myself want to see, okay, let me try to do it here.
Yeah.
Because I need it.
Exactly.
Just looking like this, I'm thinking, but if I grab my cell phone,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy. So you need to make the connection.
Exactly. So in the room, we had a participant that was talking about the importance of having the tangible item, in this case, a smartphone, to be able to take this thing that's on the screen, or in digital ESL, we would have printed this out, and be able to figure out, okay, how do I get there? How do I do it? Even all of us who have probably had to do this at least a dozen times at some point, we feel most comfortable if we could like, oh, just give me the phone, I could figure it out, right? So that's that same sensation we want to be able to give our students of like, I think I can, just give me that chance. So achieving digital literacy requires building basic skills, just basic navigation and that confidence that allows us to be able to kind of move forward for the more sophisticated things. Unfortunately, I don't know if anybody knows North Star here, if you've used it. Yes? Okay. In my research that I did for my master's project, North Star was one of the many resources that is key in teaching digital literacy. However, when you think about it for beginner learners of English, it gets to be a little bit more difficult. So on the first page that we have for basic computer skills, what do you notice about what it's asking you to do already? It says, do you hear the music? This assessment uses audio. Please turn on your speakers or put on headphones. Press the play button below to hear the audio test. And then there's a button that says play. Click on the next button below to continue when you're ready. Then there's another button that says, I don't have sound, another one that says next. But imagine you are just building sentences, right? And they're like, oh, wow. Like, even if you were good in English, you're having to troubleshoot, right? Okay, I don't have sound. Do I stop now? Like, even if I could read all of this and even if I could, now I'm like frustrated. So what we try to do with digital ESL is to really pare it down so that you're really just focused on very basic steps that allow you to be able to practice that without having technology interrupt the learning process. Because you want people to build confidence, not get frustrated on the first step.
So it's
Very targeted process, but it's also very experiential. So it's not so targeted to say, you must only touch this button, but it's, hey, as we're going through this, I want you to swipe down from the top right. So everybody swipes down and they get it until they get it, right? And then once we get there, we look for things, right? And then there, even if you don't have the ability to say what the word is, if you're like, I don't know what the Wi-Fi icon is called, right? If you can't express that, then the teacher can still say, hey, this is what you look for. You press it and then you kind of explain that and then they see what happens, right? So they don't have to be able to speak in English to be able to demonstrate that they understand something. And then once they can do it, they get the results of being able to get on, Wi-Fi and things. So the not so basic that I kind of highlight here for North Star is that it does require or assume that the learner has at least intermediate level English, has some digital navigation abilities, meaning like those buttons mean something to them. They have troubleshooting abilities. Y'all don't have sound, know what? They also have easy access to a computer or laptop. And then they also have internet access.
Doesn't North Star does have some Spanish?
Yeah.
Done in Spanish, they can't use Spanish
Mm-hmm.
to go through the individual modules.
Yeah. So like even if so, let's say that it's for the Spanish population, we would still need digital navigation abilities. We would still need the computer and things like that. So one thing that I did when I was creating digital ESL, I was just thinking, if there's not enough funding to be able to even support education like this, how is there going to be enough funding to pay for computers or like up-to-date computers? And many people are very frustrated with Chromebooks after having gone through all of this, right? That's also something that I tested on the seniors that I had worked with. So I thought, you know what? We really need to be using smartphones, right? So one thing that I think you've seen from the past, and this is in a lot of literature, but basically digital literacy and language literacy are highly intertwined. So when we've got complicated language in the previous page that had nothing to do with the digital world, but had to do with navigation, like how are you able to kind of balance those two and allow people to kind of learn the two at the same time? So digital ESL, like I said, is for beginner English learners. It requires and or assumes that the person has beginner English. So they would need to be able to write like whole words, like they would need to know the alphabet to be able to benefit it from the most. I have had people in my class that were pre-literate, but it ended up being really tough just because they were kind of transliterating some of the words back into their first language. And that although they were able to follow along for some of the processes, it was harder to learn the language because it was just a little bit further than what their capabilities were. Second thing is smartphone ownership, which I believe 95% of all Americans have at this point, which is nice. And then internet or cell service. So you can go with either. I know that there's a lot of initiatives around the country to be able to get cell service out a little bit further. And there's some broadband access that has gone out there. So having the flexibility to go either or, I think can be really helpful. And these two photos are from when I had taught it a couple of years ago. Average age of the students there, any guesses? Oh, they would love you. 82 is the average age. Yeah, so they were really stoked because they I don't know if this happens everywhere, but like they were like, people think that we don't want to learn, but we're really excited to learn. And it's really cool to be able to have, someone come, like I would go to, this was affordable housing complex for older adults. And so I would go there, once a week and teach there. And everybody always showed up like super ready and excited. So I think that's one thing that sometimes can be a barrier is people's ideas about what older generations might be capable of or not capable of. But I think with sufficient scaffolding and giving them supports, they were able to get on Wi-Fi, password protected Wi-Fi on their own, scan a QR code, and then fill out an online form, which is crazy because one of the things that you realize, like as you're going through this is it's only intuitive because we've had this type of experience before. So imagine you're just on a website, you just see a page and there's a bar, and on the end of that bar, there's a triangle that points downwards. What would you see that it means? Click on, first you'd have to go, okay, I know that that's something I can interact with. Then you go, when I interact with it, it's going to give me a list of things. Of that list of things, I need to select one. The majority of the people in that room have never gone through an online form on their own. So actually they were like not really sure what to do with it. So through the digital ESL curriculum, I was able to kind of like walk them through the actual steps that it takes. Because a lot of times people will do it for them. So they're not even looking at it. It's not that they haven't needed to fill out an online form. It's that they have either gotten help either from the library system or from, one of their family members, or maybe they just go without, or they just wait.
Sounds like this approach really enables them to gain confidence.
Yeah, this approach definitely allows them to gain a lot of confidence because, I think a lot of times what happens is when the teacher or when the instructor is not patient, then it causes the student to feel like insecure and then they're not patient. But if you're like, hey, I have literally all the time in the world. I'm here for you. You can figure it out. I'm not going to touch your screen. You could figure this out. Even struggling through, and I'm sure all of us have done this before, passwords. You're like, oh, I missed the letter. I pressed enter and it didn't work. And now I have to go and do it again. Right. But it's building that resilience and being like, hey, keep on going. You're doing it, because as soon as somebody rips a phone from your hand, you're like, no, let me do it. Like, they're like, oh no, I'm incapable. No, you got it. Like, and even between peers, you'll see like someone like tried to do, they get impatient on behalf of someone else. No, you got to let your friend do it because this is what this class is. Aw, that's so great.
Well, sure.
Yeah, let me bring this. Yeah.
And so like, one thing I've been thinking about a lot is, how digital literacy ties into health literacy.
Yes.
Because like I have health issues, so I'm in and out of a bunch of specialists but so many now you log in with the iPad.
Oh,
Like they
yeah.
don't even do, like you do your pre-registration before you get there. And then when you get there, you log in through an iPad or a tablet.
Yep.
So like the amount of people, because I'm usually the youngest one in the waiting room. Confidence booster.
Love it.
I see so many people struggle. And like I
Yeah.
get up, I'm like, hey, you need help? Because like the receptionists are busy and they
Yep.
can't help them. And so like because I work in literacy, I'm like, oh, do you need some help navigating that? And so
Yeah.
I think how empowering it must be for these older adults that
Mhm.
well, they get to that tablet and they might panic and they're like, well, this looks like that smartphone I was using.
Exactly.
You know, now
Yeah.
they can navigate and be more in charge of their own health.
Totally.
Because digital is just integrating so much with health literacy.
Yeah. Oh, did you have something else?
I think another thing is accessibility.
Yeah.
To digital literacy in general or
Mhm.
technology. There's
Yeah.
such a big gap between, at least in my organization, which is Houston Public Library, the people who we service.
Mhm.
We usually do bring out what I think they're like the window version of Chromebooks, and laptops. And I've noticed that especially when we work with seniors, there's a huge gap in which what they're kind of somewhat used to, which is their smartphones or a
Yes.
tablet and the laptops.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so again, it's hard for them to kind of gain that confidence
Mhm.
because even if we teach them how to navigate this laptop or this computer, it's still,
They practice it
Yeah.
once and then they walk away. But like
Yeah.
a smartphone you have all the time, right? And so one of the things that I think is really valuable is it's not something new. It's just them getting more comfortable with something they already have. And so with that, one thing that I really enjoy is kind of seeing how they're already using their smartphones because during a time where they, uh, you know, we were getting through the material a little bit faster, I was like, oh, let me show you something. And I thought I was going to show them something new. Like, let's go and download Google Translate. And they're like, yeah, we already have that. Oh, right. So you can't assume what people know or they don't know or what they use or they don't use. There was even people they were using live transcription. Yeah. And I was like, whoa. So don't assume, but definitely support with the materials and the hardware that people already have. This is a eye chart, so I'm gonna skip through it, but it's basically based off of studies, learners need to be able to get over their fear of technology, right? See the relevance in their own lives and increase their confidence. And through kind of that approach, hopefully their willingness to experiment will allow them to have ample practice, right? And on the bottom side, from a material standpoint, you can't just have material that is meant for workforce, a material that's meant for teenagers. There's a lot of different material that's out there. Specifically for foundational skills building, you need to teach the vocabulary of things that are going to be useful across many domains, specifically in computer skills. And you want to also, this kind of links back to the learners part, you want to integrate the technology use. So just like each of you here in the room were, and hopefully you on the phones were also, you that were dialing in also did, is when I said, hey, how do you get to that percentage sign that you didn't just like twiddle your thumbs? You're like, let me touch my phone, right? Let me figure out how to do that. And so integrating technology use is something that makes this work, because without that, it is just paper that's just sitting out there that has no relevance to people. Also, the idea of emphasizing access and using relevant technologies. If you say, oh, well, I'm a library system or I'm part of a school system and we have Chromebooks, so we need to use Chromebooks. That is actually how, that was part of the original iteration of this was, there's, they're like, we've got these ESL classes and we really think it'd be great, Tally, if you can get people to use these Chromebooks. Well, how do you make a capital S on your phones? Press and hold it. How do you make a capital S on your laptop or Chromebook? Shift and S, right? How do you navigate around on a touch screen? Your finger. How do you navigate around on a laptop that doesn't have a touch screen? Touchpad, right? So like those dynamics were really, really like throwing people off because they were like touching the screen and they're like, oh, wait, so I touch this and it does that. And also the resolution is much lower. It's not as bright, like just accessibility issues upon, original sign-in. So I think you guys know why smartphones at this point. But even if we took a look at the 65 plus community, by 2023, we are already at 76% ownership of smartphones. So that's pretty high. And you can see the rates pretty high as well. So I'll give you these slides later, so you don't have to worry about it. But some excerpts from Digital ESL. I start off with Unit 1, which integrates an informal assessment of English and familiarity with technology. Then I'm moving on to language and skills. Like I said, getting them onto Wi-Fi. Unit 5 talks about kind of like changing the settings, so making things bigger or smaller, brighter, louder, or the other direction. And then also, because I really believe in the empowerment of teaching and learning, how do you ask for help? But how do you also provide help? So that kind of conversation. Unit 8 then builds on prior units. So this is where we get into filling out forms online using QR codes. And this is where I would integrate things that are actually useful for the students in your community. So if there's something like, oh, there's a basic needs form that you want to fill out, maybe you have a QR code that links to that. Maybe there is some program that you're trying to get them to sign up for. Don't have them write their stuff down on paper and then hand it to someone. Have them use a QR code and then kind of slowly go through and do the actual form online. So there are one-page lesson plans for all 10 units, and it goes all the way down to the details of that little yellow part you'll see on the whiteboard. Write out sentence in full, then speak each letter one by one slowly, encouraging the students to repeat each letter after you say it. And then there's the example below. So the idea here is, even if you're not an ESL teacher to start with, if you have someone in your community that's willing to kind of take this and try to put it into practice, it's some structure without, having to put them through a multiple hour training to get them to be able to use this material. All right, so I want you to take out your laptops. And if you don't have them, you can still follow along visually. And open up any web browser. I typically use Chrome. I don't have a good reason why. Maybe it has my passwords and built-in Google search. What I want you to do is I want you to go to this site. You can even take out the https:// and just do bit.ly/ and then all capital DESL-OER. There's a simpler website for the overall website. If you just wanted to do digital-esl.org, that's my actual website. And then that has, like, you have to go one more layer in for the link. Yeah, absolutely. So digital-esl.org. I'm going to switch over. I'll show you. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So digital-esl.org, this is the site. There's like updates down here, but if you go on to more resources, you'll see it says Digital ESL Materials and Training. So if you click on curriculum material, actually both of those first two links go to the same spot. And then you click on the link where the line says, this is a collection of lesson plan overviews to help you train Digital ESL. Now, the reason I kind of set it up like this is because hopefully people will want to have the lesson plans along with the material. And then when you click on this, it should bring you to OER Commons. So if you click on View Resource, it will open up Google Slides. You're not lost. This is actually just the platform that I used because it's fairly universal. And so it should look like this. Does everybody see this? Yeah? Okay. So what I'd like you to do is, I know that you probably want to jump ahead and kind of see what's in there, but I do want you to wait for directions. I like to think of this concept as slowing down to speed up. So if you do follow along, you'll get a lot more out of it because I have no doubt that you'll be able to just like go with it. I want you to jump to page 4 just so that you can see that this isn't just a webinar that I'm doing now or a workshop that I'm doing now here. This is a standalone product that you would be able to kind of share with anybody. This page, number 4, shows you how to use it. It shows you that there's lesson plans, worksheets, visual aids, folding name cards, has suggested class size, dynamic, etc. And then the how to edit and remix is what we're actually going to be following. So right now we're in Google Slides. How many of you like PowerPoint here? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's okay. You're loud. So I guess you like Google Slides. Either one. Okay. So, oh, Canva. Okay. I'm not sure if you could try to bring this into Canva. So I tested this out and I've made this usable. Digital ESL is usable in both Google Slides and PowerPoint, but you're welcome to try Canva as well. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Okay, so it sounds like it would be formatable and into Canva. So what I want you to do is take a look at my screen or even your own screen at this point on slide 5, and we can follow the directions. I'll start it off with Google Slides. So to edit in Google Slides, click on File, Make a Copy, Entire Presentation. When you do that, a copy document window will appear. And that's where I want you to rename the file. If you don't, it just says copy of, and it just looks like you didn't think about it. So maybe put like your name in the beginning or your initials. So I'll follow along. So I said, go within Google Slides, click on File, Make a Copy, Entire Presentation. A copy document window will appear, and then we rename it here. I'll put MOAL, Demo AM, and then I press Make a Copy. Yeah, go ahead.
Mobile speaker notes.
Yeah, you can keep them if you want. You can keep the speaker notes. I don't know that I have that many speaker notes in there. But you can keep the speaker notes in there. So you'll see now I have on one tab, if you look up here where the title is, this is the original Digital ESL. On the second tab that I just created, it's the MOAL Demo AM, which is what I just did live with you. So now each of you has your own copy of the file, but we're not done because that's not enough to be like, oh, it's your own copy now. So the next thing I want you to do is to go to page 5 and just double check this part. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay. Yes. So on page 5, I just want you to know that this exists. So recommendations for editing and expanding this material. I expect people to customize this to their heart's content, do whatever you want. What I recommend is for the sake of your students and your audience, be consistent with the fonts you use, right? So I have some suggestions here: headers, Open Sans, normal, size 36, worksheet content, 18 to 24, visual aids, extra, like, so these are guidelines. No one's enforcing this. This is just for consistency and like quote unquote branding, but it's just for the students to not feel like it's mashed together.
Appreciate that.
Oh yeah, no worries. I played around with it a bunch and You could- There's also, I might as well just jump down here. If you go all the way down to 142, all the way to the end and then back up by a few. I also have some notes regarding images and icons. So again, same thing with the font, be consistent, not just with the font, but like if you have an X mark and you call it exit and then later you call it close, that's a little confusing. Which one is it, right? So be consistent with what the icons are and what they represent. And then as much as you can, try to review and reuse available resources for imagery. And you're like, how would I do that? This was a fun, painstaking project that probably took more than you'd expect. But basically, all of these images I created using the Noun project, which is a Creative Commons source for icons. But I put icons together, as you can see, like I would transform the face look right icon and a cropped version of the arrow icon to be able to make these things into what I needed them to be. So you're welcome to use these combinations. All of these things are right here. Everything that's in the book is in here. So you'll see all of these icons all the way down through page like 149. Going back to page 142, I talk about non-project because I do think that it's a really good repository of searchable icons. And if you wanted to use them to kind of build on more ideas, you can do that. It's fairly affordable. I also recommend Google Slides in case you just want to use shapes. And then I also have company logos in here to try to make it usable. Just be careful where you use company logos and how you use them. If you look up the name of the company with the word brand kit, you can actually typically find with larger companies, you can find the nicer looking official stuff. Also, this might be too much, but try to read the material and follow the guidelines to make sure what you're creating doesn't infringe on any type of issues. Obviously, you're not making any money from this, but it's still always good to check. Also, we do have a LinkedIn community, so please join. I would love to know if you end up doing anything with this material. We did have a teacher from San Diego Community College remix this and teach like a 3-day intensive course on digital literacy. So it's official. And there's others that are just using like parts of it. One other thing back here, let's see, how to use a remix, author's notes, image and icon credits. So we went through that. All right, so now down to customization. So we just made a copy or downloaded a copy. I showed you that on slide 5, you're able to kind of do this again if you needed to. Sorry, on page 4, we've got the material. And then page 5, you've got how to be able to edit it and copy it down. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to slide 10. This one's my name. Change it to your name. So here's what I did. This is the Unit 1 assessment. Because typically with this population, it's not like you're like, oh, please go to the assessment center first. Like you're just showing up. So if they're if they're looking at this, this is the model, right? So change this to your name. So up here, if you click where it says the teacher's name is, you can highlight these letters and then turn it into, let's say I'll put Sven. And then the next thing I would do is move these red circles. So you can click on them and then drag them down to the appropriate letters. If there's too many, you delete one. If there's not enough, you can copy. You can copy. My favorite way is like Command C or Control C after you select it. And then the shortcut is like Control V, but you don't have to do it that way. You can do it however you want. All right. How's everyone doing so far with that? Good? You have your names on there? If I were to walk around and check.
But it's gonna be easier for my students.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. So the idea with this is like, this is the model. So they've actually, this is a 9 per page, but what they would have is a full page that has just this one slide with your name or the instructor's name on the top. And then the student would have to go through and circle the letters in their name after writing it. So what that allows you to do is to see like how confident are they in finding these letters on the actual keyboard, because they're not in ABC order. So if they do it slowly, if they write it slowly, you know that maybe there's like an overall literacy. If they also circle it slowly, then you're like, okay, then they also aren't very familiar with the keyboard layout. So this is like a very subtle way of integrating digital literacy, very foundational into day one. All right. Now I want you, now that we've done page 10, I want you to create this might be too much, but we'll give it a try. Let's go to page 63 or slide 63. And for the folks that are joining in from online, I will give you the link here. For those that are not, I'll go back so that you can see it. Michelle said, could you use a tablet or an iPad? Michelle, I'm sorry, I'm just now seeing this. I don't know if you're still on. But if you are, feel free. Okay, you could use a tablet or an iPad for editing this if you wanted to. However, in class, I highly recommend limiting the device usage to just the phone, the students' phones. Cool. Yeah, I feel like the less the technology, the better. I remember during the pandemic, I was trying to explain to my mom over the phone how to use the Zoom on her iPad, and that was really confusing. So you kind of take out, like if you can be in person, which is the way that this would be taught, if you can be in person, just don't try to overcomplicate it. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is create a QR code for your students. If you wanted to use this form, it's again a bit.ly, and then DESL is digital ESL _ practice form. What this basically gets you to is an auto copy function of a form, of an existing form. So if you click on make a copy, you can be sure that you're not editing mine at all. And then you can change it. So I might again go MOAL AM and change the name of the form up there. And this is just a practice form that I created that goes along with the actual packet, but you're welcome to change it to anything you want. So this is where you would ask them to fill out like first name, last name, street address, city. I have a limited amount of selections here for states and zip code because it was just an example. But these are the types of things that were typically on the Hayward Public Library form. So I wanted to make sure that we kind of replicated it here. If you ever wanted to kind of delete it or edit it, you can always go in here. When you click on it, you can add another option. So, and then you can switch it around up here. It automatically saves. There's ones you can toggle to be required or not required. You can delete them using this trash can. The idea here is really just like give them a form that they can practice. All right, how many people here use Chrome? 1, 2. Switch between Chrome and Firefox.
You mean,
Oh yeah, sorry, Chrome the browser. Yeah. Okay. So this is a really cool feature that has saved me so much time, and I want to show it to all of you. So when you're using Chrome the browser, up in the top right-hand corner, there's I've heard people call it a snowman, I've heard people call it a kebab, but basically it's 3 dots that are vertical. And so I just clicked on that. And if I go down to cast, save, and share, I can create a QR code like on the fly. So if for some reason you're in class or in front of people and you're like, here, give it a try, actually. Give it a try. Take out your phone. And then I can make this bigger, so I can download this or I can just keep it there. But if I wanted to go like this, I do this with my students all the time because, you know, sometimes they have random questions like, where can I find out how to get parking for class? And I'm like, I don't know, but I can find it and then I can get you there. And this is how I get them there. So this allows me to be able to see the same thing they see, which is huge. And then another level up, who uses document cams here? One? Anyone online use document cams? Okay, yeah.
years ago,
I think it was a popular pandemic thing. I got it after the pandemic. But what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to use this document cam, which is called Documate, because this has been so helpful. So oftentimes you go on a website and the layout is way different between what you see and what the student sees, right? They're using their smartphone. Perhaps they might not have a laptop. So when I'm demonstrating something, say I'm on Canvas, because we use Canvas Learning Management System quite often, I'm going to go use my document camera to show them how to navigate to see their grades, to show them how to message me. I'm not going to go on the website and say, imagine this is like this, or imagine this is like that, right? Because if you take a look at this, let me try to make these side by side. This might be fairly similar. One that's not as similar, let's go. I'll just do this really quick. So you can see kind of the idea here is, regardless of what you're teaching, the more you can kind of relate the student to exactly what they're doing, the less they're going to be stumbling over the language part and the technology part simultaneously. So on the right-hand side, most teachers will go to Canvas. Now click on, like send me a note. And then it's like, where do you do that? It's like, oh, over here on the left-hand side where it says inbox. It's like, okay, I don't have a left-hand side here, right? Now where do I go? I could go here. I don't see inbox there. Oh, inbox is down here. Fun. Right? So regardless of the website or the tools that you're using, the document cam for me has been a game changer because I used to go student to student to student and say, show me your phone, show me how to do this, and I'll show you on mine. But now I can show them once all together, and then I can walk around and have them demonstrate that they know. So it saves a lot of time, and it allows there to be more of a feeling of empathy between like the instructor and the class, just because it's not like, well, I'm using the website. You got to figure out what it looks like. You've got to interpret what the web designer thought when they translated this into, mobile. Because like, how else would you describe this? It's like, okay, both of these things say English as a second language. One of them's like pinkish, one of them's like brick color. Be like, click on the right? And so you kind of run out of language pretty quickly. All right.
What is the name of the site that you were using for that particular document camp?
Oh, this one just now I was using Canvas.
Yeah, that's the other one.
Yeah, yeah.
Actual camera you have.
Oh, this is Documate. Yeah, Documate in Swan. I think I got it on Amazon. And this one was recommended by Dr. Glenda Rose, who does the digital resilience training. So it's very durable. I travel around. I've taught at like 4 different schools at once. So like, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And it's great too, because like, say for example, I'm like, all right, everybody, we're gonna swipe, like we teach the word swipe down, swipe up, right? So swipe down from here, right? So then sometimes people will go too slow, or maybe it looks like this, and like, okay, everybody, long press on Wi-Fi, right? And they can see me doing it while I say it, instead of me having to kind of gesture, which is what I did on the first try, because I didn't know this existed as like a tool. Let's see, what else do we have here? So yeah, document camera, super helpful, specifically with the QR code. You can pair it with, Chrome when you're using the Chrome web browser. And how do we get there? Uh-huh. Okay.
And then we go to cast, and it actually makes the QR from there. Is that correct?
Almost all the way at the
What's that I'm
bottom.
missing?
QR code, all the way at the bottom. Share QR code. Trick. It's a trick. So yeah, create QR code will pop up this little QR code here. You can copy it in case you're like, oh, I need this to be much larger. It is the wrong size. Or you can download it if you know you're going to use it repeatedly. So because I press copy, it's on my, I don't know what it's called, notepad, something like that. I'm sure there's a word for it. And then so when I paste, it's right here. So if it were too small before, maybe it's a large room, you now have this very large QR code that specifically goes to the site that you're on. All right, I'm going to take a pause for anyone that's online that has any questions or feedback.
Can you pull up that QR code again?
Yeah, sure.
I'm trying to get it from my phone.
Oh, yeah, sure. So cast save share QR code. So there's this one, which goes directly to the original resource for digital ESL. But like, if you're looking for a specific site, let me know and I can navigate to that tab and do the same thing.
Can you make it bigger again?
Oh yeah, sure. So what I did was, while this was up, I pressed copy and then it kind of saved in the background somewhere. And then I just pressed paste with my favorite Control V.
Okay, great. That I was able to get that.
Excellent. Cool. Yeah, and this works on all websites. You just have to use Chrome as your web browser for this to happen. That's I think it's officially the Chrome T-Rex. So that's how you'll know. What else do we have here? Oh, anyone else have anything that they wanted to share or ask?
What, I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How many like sessions would this break down to? How long time-wise would
Mhm.
this going through this normally take?
That's a great question. I think it can depend on your students. So if you're to say like, Tally, how much would you give like an average older adult beginner ESL learner? What we ended up doing was, I believe, like 1 hour a week for 10 weeks. So this has 10 units. Each unit just has like 4 to 6 slides, which you might go, wow, that's not a lot. It's not, because there's only so much you can remember at one time. And most of it isn't about filling out a worksheet. Most of it is about playing on your phone and showing me that you know what's going on. So I would say if you're integrating it into kind of existing literacy classes, it sounds like you might be able to do like a 15-minute session if they're a little bit more advanced, maybe with technology, but still need kind of the language practice. So you can try it out and just see. But it shouldn't take, I wouldn't expect it to take more than an hour for one unit. And there are 10 units. And you can do it at whatever speed you want to. I can show you the grid view.
How do you assess?
Great question. So it's an unofficial assessment, and it's usually just done while they're with their cell phone. So for example,
Just
it's observe what they're doing. Yeah. And towards the end, it is based off of actual output. So by the time you get to here, so unit 8, as you'll see, the first thing that I have them do for unit 8, and I'd recommend that you do this as well if you have particular forms you want them to fill out online, have them write down the answers somewhere in the order that they'll need them. Then, when they're ready to fill it out and they're familiar with the vocabulary that they're seeing and they know what they're signing up for, then you can actually have them go do it themselves. So this is where it becomes like proof is in the pudding, because by unit 9 out of 10, right, we're teaching how to tap the button, check the box, select from the drop down. And so the things that they wrote down in terms of answers, they're now scanning a QR code to get in to the form and having to type the stuff out. Yeah.
So were you asking basically for like measurable skill gain purposes to see the pre-assessment and progression? You could use North Star, even if you don't have an account with them. They can do the phone keyboard basics and logging in assessment as like a possible precursor. That way you have a numerical score point that you could possibly use, and each person is allowed to do that twice for free if you don't have a relationship established with them. So that could be, a portion of it as well, because it's already created. You don't have to break the mold. But if you needed something that you can actually like input for trackable numerical progression, then that could be one way to approach it. Because this doesn't fall within CASAS or TABE or BEST or any of that. So, yeah.
But if anyone has assessment skill set here, I would love to partner with you. If anyone has assessment skill set here, I'd love to partner with you to try to figure out how to get this to meet standards and to be able to put together some reasonable assessment. For my master's project, I actually did end up putting a 100-item bank question that's related to this. That is unreasonable for this audience. So we could pull stuff from there. But again, assessment is not my specialty. So if there is anyone, one of the really big reasons that I like to come out here is to meet people in person, because there might be opportunities to partner on kind of these exact things, like things that I have not addressed at all, how do we expand on it? Like, as long as there's an interest, you know, I love kind of building off other people's energy for that. So let me know. Same with those online. If there's something where you're like, hey, that's a skill of mine and I want to contribute. We could also even, I'm starting to understand that you can get paid to teach as well, which is great. Just starting to. So like grants and things, right? So obviously in the current political situation, it's a little bit rockier, but you know, if it's something where you're aware of a grant that would be applicable to making this something that could fall into standards and things like that, then let's partner, or at least chat, see how I could help. Last but not least here, I've got two things here. So slide 64. I use this in all of my classes, actually. So I created this. I love paper. I know, digital ESL, you love paper? That doesn't make any sense. So this is a paper, 8.5 by 11 paper that I put my name on. There's, as you see on slide 64, a fill-outable version. I usually have them use like a whiteboard marker that I have. And then that way, when you fold it, it can just become a name placard. So this semester, because I am challenging myself to remember everybody's name, I actually had people take photos with it, but typically I just have them put it on their desk. So that's one thing that's included, and you can edit the name of your organization or whatever you want on the bottom, but it's scaled so that it fits into a nice little Toblerone shape. There's also a certificate of completion just to make it feel official. You just need to change out the student's name. You make multiple copies of it, print it out. And you can also change out where it was held on site and collaboration with whom, name the instructor and the date. Everything is in really large font because, like I said, it was originally developed for older adults. Also, inclusivity is fun, so I love being able to do something and not have to put on my glasses. And so that's one way that you know, you can kind of leverage this. Is it's not just for the older adults that it was originally kind of built around, but with the knowledge that these types of skills and this type of design allows more of that universal design concept, you know, allows for inclusivity in that way. Do I have anything else here? I have a little other stuff that I can share, but in terms of this actual material, like I said, if you go digital-esl.org, this is my website. It's very basic. If you click on the LinkedIn icon, you can join our group. We're not super active, but my hope is that you know, as we build out more people that are interested, that others share resources and webinars and things like that, or we find partners to work on things together. The idea is just to build community and to kind of advance this area forward. Oh, one thing I didn't show you, which you see kind of a faint version of, Digital ESL comes with over 65 printable visual aids. So I also turned them into Quizlets recently. So if you like the digital flashcards, they're already available. You can just click on the link and it's there. But yeah, if I go view, grid view, and even my advanced students, advanced ESL students are like, oh my gosh, I could use this just to practice the vocabulary, because not all this stuff comes up, you know, in class. So this is what they look like. It's super clear. And then these, I'll show you guys here. These clear sheets, you can just shove them in there. And if you wanted to kind of like demonstrate or walk around, it's really easy. Again, like I said, I really like to print things out and not make it so much like, look at my phone, look at your phone, kind of like, look at this and then practice on your phone. These ones, it's right here, it's over there. These ones got a great improvement with some help from Jamie. So yeah, there's some general words in there, but a lot of it is very applicable to the world of digital technology and smartphones.
To, taking screenshots.
I don't. Taking screenshots would be a good one. Yeah, that would be a good one. I'll write that down. Yeah, taking screenshots and then like sending photos. Yeah, because it's like, I don't know what you're seeing. Yeah. Taking screenshots, sharing photos. Anyone on, I feel like someone's unmuted. Does someone want to add something?
Yeah, I just had another question. Like, how do you navigate if some of your users have Android and some have iPhone?
Oh, that's a great question. Patience, I guess, because this is all made for, it was all made for Apple, for iPhones, just because it's such a consistent user interface that to be able to just teach the general concept of things, I tried to keep it with that. What I'd say with Androids is if you have a mixed class, if you can get the people that are Androids kind of sit together, one thing that I'm a huge supporter of is like peer to peer kind of training. And so if you're seeing that you're able to help somebody with an Android, that person can maybe help the others as well. Do most of your students have Androids?
It- I'm not really sure,
Okay.
because we haven't used much with smartphones.
Oh,
We've
gotcha.
been trying to push them into the Chromebooks because that's what we have. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, no, that happens. That's a good question though, because I did have a few people with Android phones, a few people with different versions of iPhones. So that one was fun because the swiping down versus swiping up to get to the settings was like completely backwards. So there was actually one of the students told me, no, it's not from the top for this one, it's from the bottom. I was like, oh, that's great. So, so I think it's just a matter of building in some flexibility from a timing standpoint. But unfortunately, I think because and I could be wrong here, but like the user interface can differ so much um, among the Android phones that I just decided, for simplicity's sake, to just go with the dynamic um, that's in iPhone. Right. Let me stop sharing here. There was some other stuff that I think came up. What was it? It was regarding low literacy and like, what are some things that we can do to help people with low literacy besides just, digital ESL as a platform? I think I wrote down some notes here. How many of you guys teach ESL? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Almost everyone. Okay. How about for those on the phone? 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Okay. So this is probably less applicable or helpful because most of you already know this stuff, but some of the stuff that I kind of just jotted down for the sake of sharing, I guess, is activating prior knowledge. So anytime you kind of work with its technology, what's really great is that if they have the phone, they probably at least know how to turn it off. Maybe even if they can't turn it on, maybe they know how to turn it off or turn the volume down. So if you have that level, you can always ask them, can you turn it down and then do that? And they'd be like, I can't hear us. Oh, it's too loud, right? So a lot of like visuals as well. So activating the prior knowledge, I think working with technology allows them to be like, oh, I actually know more than I thought, right? Like you just kind of start off that way. With the class demonstrations, like I said, I really like to use the document camera. Sometimes I'll have them go in pairs. For this particular class, I haven't had them like come up and do anything. I think that kind of takes away from the time. But the classroom setup that has worked well for me is a U shape. And so like I'll be up at the top of the U, and then I'll be able to kind of walk in that horseshoe and then kind of see as they're going through. Let's see. Oh, how many of you know about translanguaging? Translanguaging, do you want to describe it? Yeah.
See, but
Yeah, go ahead. Put you on the spot.
I'm not an expert.
That's okay.
It's a huge theory.
Yeah.
I think translanguaging is when you, your brain is moving from language to another
Uh-huh.
and use elements from one, repertory and to the other at the same time.
Exactly.
Like, am I speaking right now? Say, I'm gonna use my computadora because I need to check my mom or my
Yeah.
I mean, mama.
Yeah.
I get that kind of mixture thing.
Yeah,
I
so
get it.
so translanguaging is something that I'm like a huge proponent of because a lot of times you have students that are different levels in language and different levels in digital literacy. So one of the things that's been really helpful for me is if there's a student that seems to really get it and they're off on the side talking to another student about what we're learning, just let them, encourage them to teach the other person, because imagine if your hands were literally tied and you're in another country, you can't gesture and no one's going to listen to you and you can't learn anything or ask anything unless you only use the language of that country. That's pretty limiting. So I really love translanguaging because it empowers the students to be able to pull on their entire language repertoire. So maybe they know some words in English, some in another language, some maybe they're gesturing, right? You're literally not tying their hands, you're setting them free. And then also teaching helps them learn. So I think for that reason, I really highly recommend for low literacy translanguaging. It's also verbal, which helps if literacy is kind of the like a limiting factor there. Oh, teacher as a scribe. So this is jumping into a little bit off tangent, but not totally. So this is still using digital technology, but not using their cell phones. And this was something that was a lot of fun for a mixed group from low literacy to like advanced, because it was the Hayward Public Library conversation circles. But basically, who here knows Padlet? Want to about a couple? So am I not sharing my screen? This is not making as much sense. Okay. So kind of stepping away from digital ESL just for a moment, thinking about how can you get students to participate in something and build something without them having to have all the language skills from a literacy standpoint. So what we did was over the course of several weeks, we created this Padlet by eliciting their feedback verbally. And so as they were doing it, I was scribing, right? Some of it has more words than others, but these were all submitted by the students themselves on places they've been to, things in the area. And then again, with the share, share QR code, they can then do this and take a look and check out new places. So my students absolutely love making this. And then they actually found a lot of new places to go. We usually find free places or like inexpensive places, and we put a couple like spendy places in there as well, just for fun. Go ahead. Yeah.
I just came back from Austin. I was at HCC Computer Educators Conference.
Yeah.
And one of the workshops, they would use AI to create an image.
Uh-huh.
An image of a city, but not name the city.
Ooh, okay.
So, and then they would post the image and have the students guess what city it was based on what was in the picture,
Oh, interesting.
which was a lot of language use.
Yeah.
Really interactive.
I
And
like
in fact,
that.
they used a Padlet to do that.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's very inventive. Yeah,
Yeah.
I might have to borrow that one.
That's a really good one, really good. And expensive.
Yeah. Ah, it's almost like TESOL, yeah. Is anyone going to TESOL? Not this time? It's in California. Come visit.
Literacy text.
Oh, Crystal, you coming? Yay. And Michelle too? Woo. I'm the volunteer leader for TESOL 2025. So we're just looking for about 150 to 200 volunteers is all. We're about at 150 right now. So that's good. But we're still looking for some more. Anyhow, so today what we went through was digital ESL. Hopefully each of you has your own personal copy. Instead of having my name on it, it has your name on it. It is saved to your Google Drive or you've downloaded into your computer. You've seen kind of some of the techniques that I try to use and the rationale for using smartphones and experiential learning, meaning that the students themselves are the ones that are navigating using their own phones. And the material itself is all printed out. We also went through if you wanted to, add, edit, remix, some recommendations on how you would treat the text and the icons and other resources that you can use. Trying to think what else. And LinkedIn, there's the network. I'd love for you to join. If you do end up using any of this material, I would love to know, just so I get a sense for that. I am trying to find somebody that would be interested in, I don't know exactly the wording that's appropriate for this, but make it so that it's like standards based, I guess. Because right now it's just something I made and people are using it, but it's not CASAS, right? It doesn't have branding against it. I don't know. So I don't know enough to know what questions, right? Okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay. So we might have an evolved version of this. So yeah, I'm hoping to be able to kind of build out a network of people that are interested in using it, interested in providing feedback. For example, like, hey, why don't you have taking a screenshot and sharing a photo? Like those are important. So even if that's just a quick little like chat in the LinkedIn or whatever, say, oh, I taught this, but like this part was a little complicated. Like it's open conversation. I don't take things personally. I like to try to make it better, make it open, make it shareable, make it remixed. And that's actually my t-shirt too. So zero textbook cost. So open educational resources are near and dear to my heart. Stuff costs too much. Stuff costs too much for the students. And if there's any way that we can improve people's educational outcomes for little to no money, in this case, no money, I want to be able to do that. And so even if there's something where you're like, Tally, you went really ink heavy on this, can you lighten it up because it's hurting our printers? Like I tried to take that in consideration, but just let me know. Like I'm open to feedback. I'm making like little tweaks here and there, and the version that you pull down from the internet is always going to have a versioning on it, so you'll know which one it is. This is my like program manager business backgrounds kind of like layering into it. But let's see here, share. So if you go up
Tally,
here, yeah, go ahead.
have you worked at all, or are you familiar with P2PU,
No, I'm not.
Peer-to-Peer University?
Mm-mm.
They're like they work mostly with libraries, and they kind of format a lot of like open source lesson plans.
Oh, nice.
And I don't know, they just might be we work with them at LAPL. I know like the Carnegie libraries in Pittsburgh are big. They work and with Detroit libraries, and actually all over the world. They've
Oh,
got like,
nice.
yeah, schools and or libraries in like Africa and Norway and like all places.
Amazing. Is this Crystal?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Crystal. LA as in Los Angeles Public Library?
I work at Los Angeles Public Library.
Awesome. Much bigger than Hayward. I thought Hayward was big. But yeah, that's awesome. So P2PU. Okay.
Yep.
I'll have to check that out. Excellent. Thank you for the input and the connection there. And like I said, I'd love for you all to join the LinkedIn group just so that we can stay connected. And I'd love to also hear your feedback on how you thought this went and if there's anything that you'd like to see in the future. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here for it. It is 11:45. I think that is the end of my time. Hey! All right. Thank you all for joining. I think we're going to take a quick recess over here, and then there's another afternoon session, but it's just in person. So for those of you on the phone, I really appreciate you hanging out with me for this time. If I say hour and 45 minutes, it sounds like very long, but hopefully it didn't feel that long and you got something out of it.
This was great. Thank you. I'm gonna be at Catisel, so hopefully we can meet in person.
Yeah, I'd love it. All right, cool. Let's do that. I'm sure I'll see you there. All right. See y'all. Have a great day.